I've been. Dreams are seeds we plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rising, small biz shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Dianne Campbell. And Dianne started her journey, went to Long Beach State University and was a marketing major with a business degree. And then from there started an entry-level position in corporate America and enjoyed marketing and moved over to a sales position. Found that this was a quicker road to success and worked with several Fortune 500 companies in their tech sales. And then in those roles helped a lot of startups and small businesses and wanted to further help them to succeed. And that led to her building her own business, which is what she does now. So with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Dianne.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely excited to have you here. So I just gave just a quick overview to a longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack things a bit and tell us a little bit more about how your journey got started going off to the Long Beach State.
You know, I lived in Long Beach, and I was really delighted to be able to stay there and go to college. I really like the city and was happy to continue my education there. I went to high school there too, and it's a great school. I got a fine education, and when I graduated and got out of college, I had a reasonable amount of college debt, but nothing that buried me. So I was grateful for that too.
Now, or what? And I mentioned it briefly, but when you went off to college, kind of, did you know what you were wanting to study, or wanted to go into business or marketing, or kind of how did you to figure out what you wanted to pursue?
So such a great question. I had no idea. And in my first 2 years, I made a lot of friends and relationships, and of course, met a lot of professors, and decided that a general major in business, which is where I knew I did want to go into some kind of business versus something like creative, like being an artist. I knew I didn't want to do that. And I grew up with my father being in business, so I just felt comfortable, but I didn't really have any solid idea from the start about what kind of business or how it would look in my future. So I looked at the courses that were offered in business, all the different kinds of majors, and chose marketing. And I still love marketing, and I'm really glad I had a major in it.
Awesome. No, makes sense. So you go off, you kind of find your path, find your way, go into marketing, start to study, and otherwise go down that direction. And then as you're coming out of school, kind of how did you figure out where you're going to start working, or kind of what was that next phase of the journey?
Well, I had some contacts through family and friends, and I was able to go to some major global advertising firms and just interview some of the leaders there. as a college graduate, not for a job or anything, but just to ask like what it was like to work in that environment for, for a lifetime career. And I just wanted to pick their brain. And they were very nice to me and very forthcoming. And for a while, I thought that I wanted to go into the business end of advertising and and research. Research is a big part of advertising, and I originally thought I would like marketing research. So it was a kind of a combination of my degree in marketing and advertising, which was an offshoot of it, and the research arm of advertising. But there again, some of the data I got back from these leaders that were talking to me, made me realize that it was a very long journey to um, to make a good living. And that for decades, you really kind of have to pay your dues and, sacrifice. And that it was just a percentage that really got successful and got promoted and started making real money. And for me, I've been, I was sacrificing all through college to, to make ends meet. And, I worked, in addition to going to school, I had part-time jobs, and I was ready to start making, a good living. And so I decided that even though I had a great major that I really liked, I would go into sales, which had the promise of almost instantaneous better living than any of the other sorts of business paths that I had discovered. And, you know, I have no regrets. I'm glad I did, but it changed me. When you have a lifelong career in sales, multiple decades, um, you you need to change to fit the career. Or well, I did anyway. I did.
So yeah, no, that makes sense. And so now you say one, you look and say kind of where the opportunities lie, as well as so I think a lot of times you come out of of school and you decide, hey, where's what do I want to do, and or you might have an idea as you start out, and it might evolve as you go along. So it sounds like you kind of shifted a little bit in directions, as well as the opportunity. So now as you make that shift and you kind of are head in that direction, going more into the sales positions and that, then I think that one thing you mentioned is you kind of got into the technical sales, or otherwise kind of went in that direction, started working for Fortune 500 companies.
Fortune 50 companies, really. And I was very lucky, very fortunate that I hit that industry tech at the time when, it was really exploding, and changing how people worked, and really bringing a lot of technology into the lives of just everyday workers in a far more significant degree than had ever happened before. So I was able to ride a couple of technology waves that were quite significant in our history. And that was great because I worked I managed to work for the winning teams in all of those waves. And so it was a tremendous amount of work and dedication, and making nothing more important than the work. But it was a lot of fun too, and I met a huge amount of people that I'm still connected to, and I'm I'm really grateful for the part that I was able to play in the shaping of how technology changed how we work. So I'm grateful, but it was definitely, and I did make a great living. So that part was true. If you bring 120% to sales, you will make a great living. Nothing can be more important than that, though. So the whole work-life balance thing in sales, you know, I don't care what anyone else says. For me, there was no work-life balance. It was work. And then, whatever life you were able to kind of forge out in the little cracks outside of that is what it was like. But the trade-off was, I not only did I make a great living, but I learned a tremendous amount, and I made some fantastic contacts, and it was a pretty exciting time.
No, that's awesome. Sounds like it provided some great opportunities there. Now, to follow up, so you working, or kind of found your way, shifted more into the technical sales, worked for, Fortune 50 companies, large companies, and that. Now, how did that shift, or how did that evolve to where you're doing today? Which, if I believe, and putting words in your mouth, you can always correct me, which is more kind of the startup or the small business, or kind of
Yeah.
more along those lines. How did you kind of make that shift, or what caused to go in that direction?
Well, there comes a point where uh, if you work long enough in the corporate environment, you end up just aging out. It gives you a tremendous living, but and this is my opinion only, my experience, but if you're over 50, you need to start looking for a second life if you want to keep working and you don't want to retire. And I want to work for a much longer time. I'm nowhere near ready to stop working. So I decided that I needed to start my own company. So it isn't like that in all industries, but in tech and in the large Fortune 50 companies, it's very much like that. There's an end point, and so you need to have an exit strategy.
No, that makes perfect sense. So you see, now you kind of strategize and make that exit strategy. Now, maybe a follow-up question, you touched on it a bit, but how did you decide kind of what that exit strategy would be, and how did you land on kind of the current business? In other words, how did you figure out, or how to go in that direction?
Yeah, for me, it was really hard. Um, I'm I'm not, I wasn't an engineer. I didn't have like a defined trade. I was in sales, and it's very broad. And when you work for a large corporate company, you end up being very much a generalist. Even though, of course, I got hired to do, one role, you bring like 10 skills to that role, and you end up being very good at a broad variety um, of tasks. And you bring a lot of skill set to the table, more so than some of the narrower fields. And so when I left, I had, and even before I left, and I was thinking about exit plans, it was very difficult to narrow it down. I remember creating a spreadsheet of 45 bullets of things that I felt really confident I could deliver to a client, from a skill set perspective. And that was just far too broad. And I didn't really have a lot of, help, or didn't know who to kind of go to narrow it down and to help me kind of focus. But I did know this. Well, my sales experience has taught me that I certainly didn't want to be a solution looking for a problem. I definitely needed to read the market right and make sure that what I was offering was a current market need. And markets change quickly. They evolve constantly. And so it was a long time and fairly complex for me to finally decide on what I was going to offer. And then when I did launch, I had to pivot like three times because, I just launched this year, so I'm a brand new startup. But uh, the environment for small business this year has been so fluid and has changed so much month to month that I had to change and refine what I was doing three times. Each of those three times, I thought, this is it. I've got it all together. I'm very focused. This is going to be successful. And then I had to change three times. And so where I am right now has, been the result of just a lot of research and a lot of understanding the market, a lot of talking to potential clients and listening closely to pain points and making sure that what I was offering answered those pain points.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. And, I think that's probably the typical evolution of a lot of businesses. You think you have it figured out from the onset or going in, and then there's always a bit of figuring things out along the way or evolving or adjusting as you proceed forward. So, well, so now as you've kind of reached a bit of the present day of the journey, now as you're continuing to evolve and figure things out, if you were to look out at the next kind of, 6 to 12 months, where do you kind of see things headed or what's in store for you?
So I'm excited about what my company offers, and I have found by networking just a real community of other people that either offer complementary services to mine, or referral partners that don't do anything I do, but maybe are one step ahead of the client journey for me. So, might be servicing the client right before they're ready for something I offer. And so it has been a really an intense but a really exciting time for me. And, in the months between when I launched and right now, which has been 9 months, there have been some some valleys, as well as some mountaintops along the way. And I would say now I'm really comfortable with what I do to solve pain points and problems for small business, and I'm starting to find that is resonating, and I'm getting the word out and getting my name out. But it takes, even though I felt like I was fairly connected, both from a client perspective and from a you know colleague perspective. I found that it takes longer than I thought it would in order to start, you know, getting my brand out there.
Hmm. No, I think that makes perfect sense. So, well, it definitely will be fun to see how the journey continues to evolve and how things continue to iterate for you. And kind of with that now, as we have reached the present day of the journey and even looking a bit to where things are headed, love to transition to the two questions I always like to ask towards the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So with that, the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What did you learn from it?
Yeah. So I in the I would say the first third of my career, I was working at one very large global company, and a competing large global company just as big poached me and gave me a um, so what ended up happening was they presented the opportunity to me to come work for them and what it would be like, and what how I would fit in and how my skills would, bring me success, and what the environment looked like that I was stepping into. And I trusted the person that I didn't know the person I was speaking with, and I wasn't connected to that person at all. Like in LinkedIn, they were like three or beyond. But they worked for this company that, even though they were a competitor, I really respected. There was a global company that also offered, a tech solution, and they were well respected, very well respected in the industry. And so I took what I was told at face value and I believed it, and I made the transition. And when I um, when I landed at this company, I found that everything I was told was not true, and that it was, in fact, like practically the opposite. This rosy picture that I thought I was coming into was just the opposite. And So I, I made the decision to, stick it out I was there for 15 months. And I ended up doing well, not great, but I certainly, by the time I left for a better position, I learned a lot. And I think the number one thing that taught me was, you know, ask harder questions up front
Mm.
and do more of my homework, which I probably would have done if I had never heard of this company that was trying to poach me. But, I got blindsided by, the respect that I had, as a company for them. But, really a shiny offer means nothing if the foundation isn't solid. And so I also thought back to the period of time after I said yes, but before I started. So I don't know, a week or two in there. And I remembered that I had a very bad feeling about it. And I couldn't reconcile it in my head with anything that I had heard. I didn't see any red flags, but I really felt very uncomfortable about saying yes. And so I ignored my instincts. And
Mm.
it hurt me later. And so I learned not to ignore my instincts anymore. And especially in sales, there is a science to it. I'm not saying that, but a lot of it is instinctual too. And so that was a mistake on my part. And finally, I think I can say that even a bad decision doesn't define you, and that it's possible to, move on and be successful from it, and that it sharpens your clarity for the future. And it's true. I never made that mistake again. I never had that happen to me again. So,
No, and that's, sometimes it's easy to follow on that of, hey, this sounds like a great opportunity, or it's going to present a lot or growth or better compensation or better arrangement. So you kind of get excited with those aspects of it, and you tend to kind of skip over or maybe overlook some of the things that you don't pay as well attention to, or
yeah,
maybe have those drawbacks. And so
yeah,
definitely makes sense that, an easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from.
yeah.
Second question that I now like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb that you'd recommend?
So, my business advice for someone starting out is what matters is that you keep moving forward in the journey. And there'll be days when you question everything. There'll be days when you second guess that you even are doing this at all. Um, but don't stop. Do not be paralyzed. Keep moving. The entrepreneurs that I have seen succeed are not, maybe always the smartest or even the fastest, but they are the ones who have always refused to stop.
No, I think that is a great takeaway. A lot of times, you kind of see hey, it's got to be the smartest, or you got to be the best funded, or you got to be, X, Y, or Z. You got to be the best networker or the best whatever. And I think more than anything, that tenacity and that willingness to continue to push through doesn't mean that, you may not have to still evolve, or you may not have failures, but the ability to keep at it, I think oftentimes separates those that are going to be successful in the long run from those that will, not make it far enough to succeed. So I think that's definitely a great rule of thumb and a great
Yeah.
takeaway.
Yeah.
Well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
So of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Dianne Campbell, but I also have a website, yourproductivitypros.com. And there is really a wealth of information and a free diagnostic you can take. I help small business uncover profit by documenting processes and procedures. And I'm so excited about what I do and what I offer. And I help people fall in love with a well-written SOP, standard operating procedure, and what it means to your bottom line to do it well.
Awesome. Well, definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Dianne, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if along your journey you need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much.
We plant, my friend. Dusty boots, but a heart of gold. Your story's waiting to be told. Inventive journey, here we go. Through highs and lows, we let it flow. Startups rise and small be shine. Your time is now, your stars align. Cowbell ring and feel the beat. Hustle hard, don't take a seat. Every step you're blazing trail. Inventive journey never fails.